Hey guys, it's Ted Bogert. Welcome back to the TED Show. This is one of my favorite spots every week. It's Heroes Always Welcome, veteran-centric, veteran-focused show where we share great ideas and the journeys of people who have served our country. And we have two of those people here. We have my co-host with the most, Enrique Acosta Gonzalez with Triad Leadership Solutions, and the one and only, my dear friend, the beautiful, much prettier than me and Enrique, Shweta Patel. She is Dr. Shweta Patel, and she's going to share her journey and talk about Gaya Wellness and so much more. Welcome, guys. How are we doing today?
Thank you. Pretty good. How about you guys?
Fantastic. We tried to do this last week, and Ted had technical difficulties. But this time we are on. Shweta is no stranger to the show. She's been on several times. She's an amazing friend and does so much in the community. Before we get to her, I like to always give Enrique a little bit of introduction there, let him introduce himself and talk about who he is and what he does.
Well, thank you, Ted. Nice to be here once again with a great guest, Enrique Acosta Gonzalez, CEO of Triad Leadership Solutions. We do leadership development. So if you are having those needs, I'm the guy. So come on up.
I love it. That's actually the best 30-minute spot I've heard from you. I love it very much. All right. So without further ado, my dear friend, the one and only Shweta Patel. Shweta like Betta, right? Isn't that how you taught me how to say it?
No.
And if I correct me, she is a physician. She is an OBGYN. She also has Gaya Wellness, which is a practice that she'll tell you about. And she is a veteran. So welcome back. Tell them a little bit about you. Let's talk about your journey and take a deep dive.
Awesome. I'll start with my name. It's Shweta, like you don't want to hate her. Patel.
Wait, why did I think it was Shweta like Betta?
Or like Beta, maybe? What's
like
that?
Beta.
I mean, you're so close that it's almost not even a thing, but you just said it's like rapid fire a bunch of times. So I figured maybe
Dr.
I should
Patel,
just.
I'm just gonna say Dr. Patel.
Oh my God, just call me Shui, like feng shui, like Shui.
That's
But
good.
so yes, I am a physician. I feel like I should have an intro like Enrique. Shweta Patel here with Gaya Wellness and OBGYN, also former Navy veteran, and yeah. I've lived in Orlando for about 4 years, and before that, I've moved around a bunch. But I'm originally from New York, and I met Ted a couple of years back, and just well, if anyone's watching this, you guys already know Ted. He's so easy to get along with, and just kind of pleasant, and just knows everybody, and is always so well dressed. So how could I not become friends with him? And yeah, I think that. My military background probably has had the largest impact on where I am right now in my life, outside of my parents. And I say that because it was what put me through medical school. I joined the Navy when I got like that postcard in the mail that's like accelerate your life, and I was like, yeah, I want to do that. And they're like, oh, pay for med school. So the Navy got to me first. I didn't even bother looking with Army or Air Force, and I heard they had better uniforms. At least that's at the time that was like their selling point. Didn't really know the difference between the branches other than the most fundamental differences you can think of. So I joined in 2003, and they put me through medical school with a health professional scholarship, which was one of the best decisions I made. Most physicians will graduate with anywhere from like $250,000 in debt. Not only was I not, compromised with that kind of a weight on my shoulders, but I actually was able to save up money from the stipend that they gave us as being an officer in the military while we were in med school. And then just going through the military lifestyle, and feeling like wherever you go, you're going to become friends with anyone that's also military. It's just almost like an instant connection sort of a thing. It's one big family, which also means there's good, there's bad, there's annoying, and there's awesome. And so even in the Navy, there was all of that. I remember when I got stationed at Camp Lejeune, and I was like, this is annoying, back in 2013 or 11, I believe. And I was probably like one of the only single in her 30s female officers in the town. I'm sure there were more, but it felt like it at least. And it was a very family military town, and not much allowed to do there. I also was stationed in Bethesda and Walter Reed, so that was like amazing. And just learning all the like the chain of command, that discipline, that integrity, that honor code, the attention to detail, which I should have paid more attention to the attention to detail, but I did get some of it. I can't even imagine what I would be like right now had I not picked up what fraction of it I did in the military. But it really did kind of mold me into a mature woman, as opposed to what I feel like I came in as like a girl. And the experiences and the skills I learned, I feel like to this day, they are very much present in how I interact with people and how I command any kind of authority in the time of need or leadership when I need to, as well as the ability to, have like that service and like service mindset where you're doing what you're doing because it's for the greater good. And
I have a question for you though. Tell me, I wonder if it's different. A lot of times we have vets that come on and we talk about the transition out. And I'm wondering, because of your profession, did you have challenges transitioning out of the military into civilian life? Or do you feel like it was mitigated? Oh, so you did. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, as a physician, there's the military medicine world, and then there is the civilian medicine world, which is the business of it is completely different. And I think that in the military, we're shielded from that in a good way, but it's ultimately catches up with us. So it's not that great when it does. But while you're in the military, you can focus on what's best for the patient. You can focus on finding the best resources that are available. And you really do get to work with a population of people that are in general healthy and they're fitness oriented, which is amazing. And in the civilian world, there's that element of like, you have to reach that bottom line. There's that element of corporate medicine, of which the motivations are not always for the greatest and best use of resources for the patient. It's the greatest and best use of resources to retain that profit. And it can be very conflicting to have to factor that in as a employee physician in the civilian environment. And I think even as a private practice physician, you're so ill prepared because there's no learning of business in medical school or in the military. So we kind of walk in not even knowing really how to code or bill, and we just know how to practice medicine, and we kick ass at that. We have so much experience because there's just so many people in the military that you get to cut your teeth on. So we come out trained pretty solid, but then doing like the real world stuff of billing and all that, it's not as easy of a transition. Inevitably, you learn it, because just like in the military, what's that?
I'm sorry, you were a little delayed. Maybe I am. How did you overcome that?
A lot of trial and error, and a couple of courses of like CME or credit courses that you go to, and you just cram it all in a weekend, and then you learn from experience. So it's nothing insurmountable. But that was one of those things that I'm glad I actually didn't learn about in the military, because it would have spoiled it. That was like we were shielded in a good way from that reality of medicine. Yeah.
I love that. I didn't mean to get you off track. A lot of times when we do the show, vets will reach back out and go, God, I love that. I didn't think of that as a way to overcome the transition issues. Because there's very few vets that I've spoken to who say, oh, it was a breeze. I moved right from whatever my training was in the military straight out into civilian life, and they loved me in corporate America. And it just very few. And so I think that's where there's a lot of struggles that vets go through when they leave.
That, and I think one of the big things in the civilian world that I feel like the transition is tough from military to civilian world, especially if you're not doing like a employee transition. If you're anyone who's trying to start their own business, um, it's very challenging to have that mentality of I can do whatever and anything I want. I can think about it and I can accomplish it. We're just so used to I'm going to do what I'm told that, it's a little bit of a mindset change, because it's that element of networking and connecting with people who have greater resources than you or who have more experience than you, and just throwing yourself into that crowd and being like, hi, how can I be of value to you? How can you be of value to me? Let's make this happen. This is my dream. Whereas like in the military, you're actually not allowed to, like, you're not supposed to be like, hey, captain, like you're an ensign and you're like, let's hang out. I want to pick your brain. Like there's active, measures in place to not allow that kind of mingling. And so I think that is a big transition and necessary one, because, when we are out, we need to learn that pretty quickly. Otherwise, you end up growing much slower, if at all. And then that can be discouraging within and of itself. Lack of the speed of growth then prevents you from growing too. So I think that was one big thing that stood out to me when I started to run my own business.
Let's talk about
Shweta, I served in the Navy as well. So great to have you as a guest. we get a lot of Army and other, but you mentioned the transition piece in terms of, hey, I'm glad they didn't teach us that in the military, because it would actually deter you from the true mission of what we do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But what elements of points that you wish they could have, and maybe the military could ingest into that way they train you, that would help you facilitate that transition a lot better?
I definitely think having a better learning or understanding of how to just run finances, beyond the basics of I have my paycheck coming in and I've budgeted my expenses. You really being involved in the financial resources of the mission. I think perhaps it could just be my ignorance that I wasn't involved, and maybe there are, people or medical officers who are involved when they get to a certain level, like a certain echelon of involvement in the mission, that they are involved in figuring out what's the best use of funding, what are the best resources, and how are we going to implement this mission. And they had to worry about things like, well, this device costs this much, whereas if we buy this device, it would get us 10 times that, et cetera, hypothetically speaking. But as far as I'm aware, like the general officer who's a physician wasn't given that level of training. Yeah. And I think that would be useful in terms of just how to run the finances of a business, because it's only a couple of steps farther than what we already do just in our personal finances. Okay. And I think that would really set up veterans going out into the world, any field, because every aspect of what we do, if we're not going to be an employee, is going to require that level of knowledge of how to survive the first, second, third year of a business when it's not generating anything, and how to potentially avoid that, how to generate revenue from the get-go, or even how to start a business without any money and realizing that there are options for that. How there's just that level of awareness is not, there's not room created for that, at least in the military experience. So I think that would be probably a great place to start. Then again, I think that'd be a great place to start in medical school. It's crazy how like, they don't even teach us about our bills. It's like, hey, you're going to have $250,000 debt. Don't think about it. Focus on the anatomy. And it's like, okay. And then you just, you just get on the hamster wheel. And some of my friends now, like it's been, 2003. Oh, it's almost been 20 years since I graduated college. Some of my friends are still on that hamster wheel, paying back loans from college and med school and whatnot. And so we are ahead, but then we don't go as fast because of that lack of skill set unless you make extra measures to, acquire it. So
good.
Yeah.
All right. I have to ask you about Gaya Wellness. We did a show in the past. And by the way, I don't know if you remember, we actually didn't meet about the show. We met over real estate back in the day, which is just me. I was thinking about that. But Gaya Wellness is a relatively new venture for you, a relatively new initiative for you. So talk about it, because I think it's the way that you set it up is beautiful.
Thank you. So this is my passion project / my startup that I launched last year in March. Gaya Wellness is a telemedicine company exclusively for women's health, comprehensive women's health. And it's a relatively novel concept. There are only 2 other companies in the entire country that kind of attempt to do something similar, where it's entirely a virtual offering. And of course, the first question that everybody asks me, or as soon as I say that, is, how is that even possible? And like, I get these looks like, am I doing something, under like the board? And I'm like, no, guys, trust me, it's all PG, at least for now, until we have technology that allows it and makes it okay. But it's not common knowledge amongst even women or in general populace that a woman's health does not require constantly looking under the hood. We can address a lot of her concerns and give her excellent quality care, and probably give her better care because it's easily accessible, just from talking. And it can be accomplished in the exam room, or it can be accomplished on a virtual setting. And I recognized that when the pandemic came along and we had to basically still manage to take care of our patients without being able to actually have them come in. And we were allowed to do telemedicine. So I started offering it to everyone: pregnant women, women who are in menopause, women who are having issues with just their plans to become pregnant, everyone basically. And I was surprised at how little it impacted my ability to still give them the care they needed. Sure, there was always like a couple of outliers that, we'll just have to wait till it's okay for you to come in so we can finish this part of your visit, and I can, examine you. But for the most part, everybody was able to get what they needed. And it was weird because as a doctor, you're not supposed to be like, oh, I'm okay without examining you. Like it's like
right.
The antithesis of what we're supposed to be doing. It's like physical touch is what our jam is. But I think in the reality of it, we as doctors, we went into this field because we love the art of connecting and taking care of our patients. That's like completely ruined in current day healthcare, right? Like it's literally the one thing we don't get to do anymore. We don't get to actually connect with them. We don't get to actually take care of them. We basically we have enough time to put on a Band-Aid and maybe slap on a second one as a backup just in case until they come back again. And there's no real time for preventative care. There's no real time for teaching them how to be healthier. There's no real time to even listen to their actual concerns long enough to be able to piece together what's really going on without having like a knee-jerk reaction of being like, oh, that's what's going on. Here you go. Here's the prescription. Bye. It's what causes burnout, because as physicians in general, we work pretty hard. I mean, we got through med school and residency. Like, trust me, working and seeing 50 patients a day is not what causes burnout. It's not getting that sense of reward that we're doing it and we're making a difference, that our patients actually respect us and we're making an impact in their life. It's that element that's not there anymore, or at least as much, that makes even seeing 10 patients in a day so painful, so challenging, so unrewarding. And that's the reason why, is because of just the way our current healthcare system is set up to basically struggle. So now I'll get off my soapbox. Gaya Wellness.
No, I think it's so revolutionary when because when you talked about it, we've talked about it on the show when you first sort of launched, and the feedback that I got, a lot of questions that I got, were like, this is so cool. Is it like a concierge? Of course, I got the ones you talked about earlier. How does she examine that on camera, right? So how does she examine all of that stuff, right? But I think people were wondering if it was concierge service. Do you take insurance? Talk a little bit about that, because they asked me those questions prior, and I don't think I ever followed up with you. So bad host Ted to get them answered.
So right now, I'm not accepting insurance. I've just kept the cost of the visit as low as possible to be comparable to like a Medicaid copay. And eventually there was a plan to accept insurance, but I'm planning on making this into a national company. And with each state, there's new and different kinds of insurance credentialing hurdles, which make it so much of a waste in energy to jump that hurdle. So maybe when the company is bigger, I will have a separate section that deals with that part, where we can, we can accept everyone's insurance. But until then, the goal is always going to be to keep it cost, conscientious. And that way, for all the more than 30% of women who don't have health insurance across the country because they are either unemployed or they're in that weird, faction of society that don't qualify for Medicaid and can't afford actual commercial insurance, they can still get the care they need. And this is by no means, I didn't create Gaya to replace current day OBGYN practice. I like to think of it as the bridge between what medicine looks like right now and what it could look like, so that we still have the care that we need to get, but we're not obstructed by all the hurdles that the traditional office setting creates for a woman. Like, oh, it's a 2-week wait to get an appointment. Oh, when you come in, you have to fill out all these paperwork that you probably filled out 3 times already, but fill it out again. And then you're waiting 2 hours to actually see the doctor. And then the poor doctor has been seeing so many patients that you don't know about, but when you finally see him, you're really ready to lose it. And they only have 3 minutes to give you. So then, and somehow you're supposed to get a very balanced and quality care experience in that mindset. Some women can't because they're not able to access an office. They're in a medical desert. There's also medical deserts in cities like New York. And it's not because there's lack of actual physicians there. It's because they can't physically go because of their work hours. So their opportunity to take advantage of the care that's available is very low. And so what I love about what I'm creating is I have women who are at school, OCPS, they're on their lunch break in their classroom and they're having their visit, and they don't have to worry about getting time off or leaving their workday early. They don't have to worry about arranging for, a substitute teacher. Moms don't have to worry about getting childcare. It's convenient. And then you add on top of that a physician that is mentally rejuvenated and able to connect and ready to connect because they actually have time to talk to their patients. They're not rushed by this overhead cost of must see 45 patients in a day. So I think it's kind of twofold. It's going to improve the level of care women have access to. And I think it's going to really give physicians that opportunity, at least gynecologists, that opportunity to practice the art of medicine again. And so though we don't accept insurance right now, the cost is going to be pretty affordable. And it is kind of like concierge in the quality.
Just go ahead, honey.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying, I think it is concierge in quality. It's just not concierge in price tag.
But I think one of the things that I'm seeing a lot of is people are moving. They're shifting to the concierge concept for their own medical, because I spent so many months, and so did Stacy, my wife, fighting our own insurance to get things paid or approved. And it's becoming such a nightmare now for the consumer that we all know that it's a nightmare for the doctor and the staff, but it's becoming such a nightmare. So I have seen a lot. We have a concierge service. It's in addition to our insurance, but I love the one-on-one and the you feel like you're having a relationship. And when you walk back in the door, you are not filling out the same forms you just filled out. Sometimes the week before, when you're coming for a follow-up, you're filling out the same stuff all over again. And then you're also not fighting your insurance because this one does not take insurance either. But we know that going into it, and it's worth it to us.
And I think that the experience and the quality of care that you're talking about, unfortunately, that used to be the standard without having to pay a concierge price tag. And slowly but surely, this, malignant infiltration of cost in our healthcare system, wastefulness, has essentially necessitated it to create a whole new product called concierge medicine, which is just how a patient should be treated. But now you can buy it and not have to gamble being treated that way or not. And it's unfortunate because it's like, well, if you don't have that kind of money, what happens? When nobody wants to talk about that, right? Like, it's like, well, doctors are doctors. We'll all treat everybody the same. But that's realistic in the intention. The outcome is not so much the same. And the reality of it is, with doctors being overloaded to kind of work and see more patients to compensate for the cost of healthcare from their employers, right? Because we're the front line. We're not the people making the decisions. And the people making the decisions are not being associated with the decisions. The doctors are. So the quality is compromised at a detriment to the physician-patient relationship. And I'm hoping that maybe this, stimulates a new way of fixing this problem.
Hope so.
At least until then, we just
it's worth it to me.
I
think it's worth it to a lot of people. I think as insurance costs continue to skyrocket for the consumer, a lot of employers are cutting back on what they pay. I think you're really going to see a trend in that. I read a couple of articles recently, and it's just everybody's talking about it. I think it's going to move forward. You're ahead of the curve as usual. All right. So how do we reach you? What's the best way we can find out more about you and Gaya Wellness and all the amazing things that you're doing in the world?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can actually reach out to me directly with my email address, which is my first name, Shweta, Shweta, or Shweta, like Ted likes to call me, because you want to make it better. I like it. I mean, I can see it. But my first name at Gaya Wellness, GayaWellness.org. You can also learn more about the company at GayaWellness.org. And you can learn more also about our forum, which is a Facebook group where women can basically engage with each other, support each other, and learn things about their health, as well as have their questions answered. But it's moderated by professionals in the healthcare field so that there's no wrong information being kind of circulated. But otherwise, it's like fair game, ask whatever you want, and people do. But we have a Facebook forum. It's called the Gaya Wellness Forum, so you can look that up. And on Instagram, it's Gaya _wellness is the handle. And yeah, plenty of places, or just Google it. We're finally like showing up on the first couple of lines on Google. I'm like, yes, we're legit.
Yes. And we'll talk next time on your, stay tuned guys, because Shweta Feng Shweta is launching her own podcast soon. So stay tuned for that. We'll bring Dr. Patel back on for that, because I want more people to watch and listen to you. All right. You're a joy always. Thank you so much. I love what you do. Your energy. Thanks. I appreciate you. Enrique, you too. Always looking handsome and dapper. You all, if you have veterans that would you think have a story to share, maybe a journey, you're doing good in the world, want to get on here and share with the rest of our community, we'd love to have you on. Heroes always welcome. We'll see you guys soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Have a good one. You guys get back.